Hello everyone, welcome to Exploring Tarot. My name is Sandi, and today I thought that we could have a little look at some of the tarot crafting that I've been doing, and at the end of this video you will find a short little tutorial on how to make these card stands. I made these because I found that I had a lack of, I couldn't find card stands that would go with my space. They were either too big or too small or not flexible enough, so I've decided to make a few of these little card stands from air dry clay, so that I can, position them and twist them exactly how I need them to be so that they will fit the space that I have. And the first ones I made, these were the first ones I made, and I found that they were too thin. You see, when they dried, it kind of bent a little bit and it became a bit unstable, and bigger cards would just fall out of these. However, smaller cards are fine. So then I decided to make them a bit thicker, and you can see they're quite straight, and they can hold up. They're heavy enough to hold up even larger cards. These ones I haven't sanded yet, so they're a bit rough. The texture is a bit rough, but once I've sanded them, they will be as smooth as these ones are. And these ones you can then later on paint in whatever color you want, or even engrave sigils or anything on it after it's dried as well. It's quite simple. Here's another card stand that I made that's also a little bit too thin, but I made card stand where I can have the cards either one or two cards, like so, and in the middle I carved out a space for a tea light, like so, if I fancy it, or you can put a crystal in there, like that. And this one I let dry, and I sanded it, and then I painted it with acrylics, and lastly I sealed it with a varnish, like so. Yeah. And then just to show you what fabulous things you can do with air dry clay, here's a little ornament that I made as well, just to decorate my balcony with. And then I have also made this air freshener, so you can just put essential oils, a few drops, and let it soak in, and then you hang it up and let it freshen up the air a little bit. I have this keep this one in the bathroom, and I always refill the drops whenever we get visitors and such. And for this one, I actually just to get this pattern, I actually used a candle. I have a glass candle holder that has this kind of pattern in it, and I just used it to roll over the clay while it was wet, and then I got that pattern. And last but not least, this is the biggest project I've made with air dry clay, and that is this moon that I have hanging in my kitchen window. And this one took me quite a while to finish, and it was one of my first projects when I started out with air dry clay. I just had it in my mind exactly how I wanted it to be, and it's not as difficult as it looks. It's just, you know, tracing out the shape that you want to cut the clay in, and then carefully cutting that out. And then you do the same thing with these. You trace out on paper, and then I used a knife, a little scalpel, to cut out these shapes, and then I just sat for ages and cleaned up the shapes with a brush and water paintbrush. But this one is one of my absolute favorites. I love this moon, and every day when I go to make my morning tea, I look at it and feel really happy that I put in the time and effort to make this for myself. All right, I'm gonna put these away over here. The tools that you will need for this little project are not many. You will first and foremost need some air dry clay. I use this Das air dry clay. I found this in the local craft store. There's lots of different types of air dry clay. There's lighter ones, like the one I used for here. This is made from Fimo Air. I think it's called Fimo Air clay. I will put all of the items and the tools that I've used down below. But this one is really, really light. I mean, it's like a feather almost. It's super light. This one is the same that I've used for these and for the moon and the other items I showed you. And this one comes in grey, white and terracotta, which is the same as the air freshener I showed you. And this one you can get in much smaller, you can get this one in much smaller packages as well. So you don't have to buy this huge chunk. This will make quite a lot of stands, I will tell you. Everything that you saw that I've showed you have so far been made from one package of these, and I think it was like half of this maybe. So you really don't need much clay in order to make these, for example. You just need a little bit. Anyway, so that's the clay that we're going to be using. Then we also have this, I also have this these cookie cutters. You don't need cookie cutters, it just makes it a lot easier when you are cutting out the shape that you want for these. I will be using, I think it was this size. Yes, or was it the next size up? No, it's this one. You can use whatever size you want. Obviously, if you want a really big one, you can use whatever cookie cutters you have. So you can also make a star shape or a heart shape or whichever shape you want, really. So let's put those over there. Then you also need a scalpel, and you will also need something along the lines of a ruler or any other thin, straight implement. And then also you need a rolling pin. This is one specifically made for clay use, but you can also use any old rolling pin or even a wine bottle or any other glass bottle. And then you also need something to gauge the thickness of the clay. For example, if you want the clay to be equally thick across the whole piece, it's easier to use something I used these. These are not even the exact same thickness, but it'll work. You can also use recycled lollipop sticks. I've seen a lot of people use, or something else of equal thickness, about the thickness that you want your piece to be. So that's all the tools that you need. Let's get started. Alright, so I'm going to use up this last little piece of clay that I've got here in a different package. And you can keep your clay ready to use by sealing it properly with some cling film and then a couple of bags of plastic around it so that it stays moist and doesn't dry out. I like to first soften that clay up a little bit by gently kneading it in my hand. We're not going to knead this whole clump. I might actually get two more stands made from this, although I mean I don't need any more stands. But I have also made a little spell candle holder over here. I forgot to show that to you earlier. And another thing that I forgot to mention was that you also need a little glass of water and a paintbrush for smoothing out the clay afterwards. Whoops. Alright, I think this is smooth enough now. So in this case, I'm just going to put these things here. And I'm going to roll this clay into a little ball. Doesn't need to be perfect. And then you just plop that in the middle there. You take your rolling pin and you just start to gently sway back and forth. Like so. You might want to turn it. And you see these ones now then stop the rolling pin from going any further down than these. Oops. See, I need bigger matchsticks boxes because now it's gone a little bit too. That's okay. I'm not going to go there anyway. So, and we can turn it around. You can see there are cracks here, and we can sort that out later. There we are. Just keep rolling to make it as nice and even as flat as possible. And you see there where my rolling pin dinked down. I don't know if you can see it. It's thinner there, so we're going to avoid that area. But if we now take one of the cookie cutters, like so, and just push straight down. Just swivel a little bit, like so, and then we can gently, very gently, push it out. There. Now we've got one of the bases ready, and at this point we can dip our finger in the water and just smooth out these edges if we want, like so. You can see it's a little bit rough over there as well. Your finger will work best in this situation where you want to just smooth out the rough edges. But do bear in mind though that it gets a bit messy because the clay starts dissolving when it gets into touch with water. We can do a little bit over here just to seal up that little crack a little bit. We can have this as the back. It's not going to see the light of day anyway, it's just going to be against the table. And then we can also smooth out these cracks a little bit over here. And like I said, once it's dried a little bit, we'll smooth it over even more, and then in the end, when we sand the whole thing and after it's dried, there's going to be no problems with those cracks at all. Besides, I think it adds a little bit of a rustic homemade feel to it, and that's why I like it. Now this clay here, you can knead it together again. And if you want to make another one, you can see if you can fit another one in there. Or if you are happy with just the one, you can put it back into the wrapper and wrap it tightly. And it's best to do this straight away so that it doesn't have time to dry even a little bit. And you wrap it tightly in the cling film, and then I have this little Ziploc bag that I also seal and push all the extra air out, like so. Now that's ready for me the next time I want to make something. Alright, so now comes the part that I was talking to you about earlier, where you need a ruler. So we are going to try and find the middle, just eyeball it, I'm not too picky. Eyeball it to try and get to the middle bit here. Just make a little dent like that. It almost looks like a pill, but I don't mind. It looks like a half moon once you've got the card in there. So now once you've got a little line to follow, you just very, very gently pull the scalpel across the line a few times, a couple of times from one side, then you turn the piece and you pull it from the other side, like so. And you can now see that I've only made a little bit of a dent in there, and we want it to be about halfway through so that the card has somewhere to actually sit in the end. And this is where I just gently, gently, gently push more and more, like so. And I try to keep the blade as straight as possible, like in the groove, so that it doesn't get deeper in one end. Like so. And once the scalpel has gone deep enough, I tend to use the roller to push down in there, just straight down, and you need to have a look from side to side. Try and do it as parallel as possible. There we go. Just wiggle it a little bit. And here we are. Now you see it's a little bit uneven there because the ruler itself is like, it's like beveled, or whatever you can call it. So if you want to, you can use anything that's like, if you have a ruler that doesn't have that bevel, that would be really good. Let's see if I have another ruler we can use. No, they all have that bevel. Maybe that one's a bit better. I think I've used this one before. It's got clay all over it. But you can also just go. Be careful, because now you see it's a bit loose there, and I think that's going to be quite okay. We can test it as well if you have a card you want to test it with. See if it's straight. Yeah, it's pretty straight. Don't push it down too far in the clay, because then you'll get clay on your cards. And now, once we have the little, you can also bend it open ever so slightly just to get the thing, because when this dries it's gonna shrink a little bit, and you don't want the little square here to be too small, so we might actually want to just push a little bit more in there. There we go. Right, so once you've got that the way you want it, you take the brush, you put a little bit, you dampen it a bit with some water, and then you can start smoothing out everything that you want to be smoothed. And it's good to have a soft but still kind of robust or hard brush for this. There we go, and I can just push a little bit in here in the ridge. Just smoothing it out in there for a little bit. Go. You can see it's a little bit. There we are. And once you have it the way you want it, because I mean, if you don't want to smooth it, you don't have to. You can leave it all kinds of rough, or put some kind of texture on there if you prefer as well. I apologize for my stomach, it keeps grumbling. I'm not hungry, I promise, I've only just eaten. It just keeps making noises, and this microphone I've got, it picks up on everything. I hope it doesn't pick up on my stomach though. So, when you've smoothed it to your liking, you just need to put it in a safe place to dry. So, and then when it's dried, you will need some sandpaper, or you don't need to, but you can use some sandpaper to smooth out anything that you didn't get while smoothing it out with water. And if the ridge that you made is a little bit uneven, then you can also use sandpaper to even that out. You can see in there that it's a little bit uneven. It doesn't affect the cards in the slightest, because you just put the cards in very gently in there and they just sit there, so that's perfectly fine. Anyway, that was the tutorial I wanted to share with you. I hope you liked it, I hope you found it useful, and please let me know and tag me on Instagram. I'm exploring_tarot, and I would love to see your creations if you decide to do any tarot crafting with air dry clay or any other medium. Also, I would like to start this hashtag Tarotcrafts, because I would just love to see what you've made in all kinds of crafts relating to tarot or witchy stuff. So yeah, thank you for watching, and take care, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!